What's going on, guys? Today we're going to go over how I took this giant mess of everything to block off this turn signal and fiberglassed in some panels to actually put the turn signals back outside of the grill like it was factory for that year. It was preference, I guess, back in the 70s to move the turn signal inside the grill, and they would do that by just applying a glob of fiberglass, I guess. All right, so first of all, this is the mess that I took out of there, and I'm going to show you guys with this caliper. I'm going to zero it out here. So it's at 0. I'm going to switch it over to inches, and I'm going to measure how thick this repair was. Literally almost a full inch, 0.99 inches. That's how thick this repair was. And inside this repair, I'm using air quotes there, inside the repair there was some steel and a ton of fiberglass, and it looks like they used some short strand filler or something like that, but you can definitely see the fiberglass mat on the back of this. But this piece of fiberglass looks like something you need to call an archaeologist to kind of see what's going on here. So the first process, I guess, was just to kind of decide where the turn signals were supposed to go. So really it was just finding a bunch of images online of these things stock and kind of replicating that and exactly where the turn signals were supposed to go. So I made a bunch of marks. I had a repair panel that I cut to size, and I used a point of reference, which was just a piece of tape all the way along the body line to make sure that my marks were lining up with where the factory spot was for the turn signal. So I used a pneumatic saw just to cut the whole area out. I'm glad I used that type of saw because there was metal mixed in the middle of it. So obviously you needed something fairly aggressive to get that out of there. So I'm going to catch you up to kind of where we're at now. And obviously this is not a finished product by any means, but we have everything starting to smooth in here. And this is just, I think 2 layers of fiberglass on the outside here, and then a thin layer on the inside. Because basically what I did was I cut this whole section out, and I went in there and made what's called a bonding strip, which is essentially a smaller piece of fiberglass that goes inside there. You want to sand it all down, get all the fiberglass showing. So once you got your strips and your cut and where you're going to bond the 2 areas together, you need to first clamp the bonding strip into the area that's going to be bonded together. So you're going to come in here with your 3M panel bonding adhesive. That's what I use. It's like an epoxy, and it's a 2-part thing, and you have to get this little gun here that'll mix it down the tube as it's being dispersed, but it bonds really nicely, holds really strong. And I've put quite a bit of pressure on this, trying to see if there's going to be any failures, because I'd rather force a failure than to have one on the customer whenever he's 5 years down the road from this paint job. Basically, wherever your line is, where you're bonding the 2 panels, you're gonna leave your bonding strip to where it's gonna hang down below so that you have like a little flange to put your panel onto, and then you use more of this panel bonding adhesive, and then you're going to clamp the crap out of it just to get everything nice and bonded in there. And as you can see, you can barely see where that repair was made. I've got to do some more fiberglassing here, and fill in some little low spots, but that's for a different product, which we're going to talk about in this video. All right, so you guys have seen the other side. We're going to come over to this side, which is not as finished as the other side, and just kind of go over what's going on here. So as you can see through here, there's a line, and that's where our panels are being bonded together. Okay, so you want exposed fiberglass above and below. There's nothing wrong with exposed fiberglass. Some videos will tell you that there's things wrong with exposing your fiberglass. Actually, that's the incorrect way to make a repair if you're not going down to the fiberglass. For the purposes of this video, I've left the bottom side of this unfinished, so you can just see there's a gap there. So we're gonna go over how you can kind of make those 2 panels 1 panel with some fiberglass. So it's important to note here that the repairs that you're going to do on fiberglass, especially if the back is exposed, like most of this, you can actually get to the back side of it. So I went on the back side and did the exact same repair that I've done on the outside. That way you're building strength on the inside and the outside. That way you're not going to have a failure whenever you hit something in the road or whatever. This fiberglass is going to be as strong as humanly possible. Real quickly, I want to go over what I'm using in this video. You've got your hardener up here, and this is a fiberglass resin by USC. number 58020. But basically, there's a ratio that you have to mix these in. You just put it in a cup. And I think for every 1 ounce, you're putting 14 drops of the hardener. I have a little bit colder temperatures, so to kind of speed the process up, I'm putting just a little bit more hardener in there, just so I can actually get some stuff done and not have to wait all day for this stuff to dry. So also draped over the side of my truck here, I have a fiberglass mat. This is more of like your coarse style. They do make a thinner style that's more for like finishing out, but I like to use this thicker stuff and then go over top of that with some short strand filler. Basically that stuff's just used to cut your little repair strips that you need. So when you see this little area right here, that is just a piece of that cloth being cut out. Stuff is actually super simple to use. A lot of people kind of make it super difficult by doing a couple things, which I'll talk about later. But first of all, let's go ahead and get this all ground down to get the exposed fiberglass, and then we'll repair the area from here all the way back underneath here. So this is just a right angle grinder with a little screw-on disc here. You don't have to go too crazy with this. The big thing is that you want a little bit of a valley between the two pieces that you're bonding together. That way, that's where the mat is going to be laying at. And then whenever you go to like finish sand this and then put filler on top of it and everything, then you've got a nice thick repair. Not quite as thick as the last guy who did this, but you got a nice thick repair that's going to actually be structural. This stuff is nasty to sand off. It gets in your eyes. You can breathe it in. It's not good to breathe in. Even getting on your skin makes you super itchy. So make sure you're wearing like long sleeves, jeans, or something to protect your skin, protect your eyes. All right guys, so I've gotten everything sanded here and I have a little bit of a valley here for the fiberglass to go into like I was talking about. So the two things that you're gonna need now to actually lay your mat in there is a little mixing cup. You don't need very much fiberglass for this. So you need your mixing cup and then a chip brush. These things are super cheap. You can get a whole box of them for just a few bucks. But these are like a use and throw it away kind of thing. So besides that, you're gonna need to have your fiberglass mat ready. And I've kind of pre-cut some strips here that are gonna go in like right there and then all the way down. And I've got them in varying thicknesses. So I've got a thinner one, and then I've got some thicker ones. Basically the thinner ones will go on first, and then you're gonna put the bigger ones on there to kind of taper it out a little bit. So, and you can do it in 2 steps. It doesn't matter the timeline, because I can grind this back and then put another layer of fiberglass on it. It doesn't matter. Personally, I like to just let this dry, go back in and sand it all, and then see exactly how thick of a piece I need to kind of blend this panel in, because really, ideally, you want to do most of the blending of the panel with your fiberglass mat. That we've got the strongest bond possible, and then you go over top of it with like a short strand filler. All right, so the nice thing about these cups here is that there's actually some measurements on the side of it. So you know that if you fill it up to the 2 ounce mark, obviously you have 2 ounces of fiberglass. So according to the instructions on the can right here, we are going to look down through there and see that it's 14 drops of hardener per 2 ounces of fiberglass. So we're gonna go ahead and do that now. So that was 32 because, again, colder temperatures. I want to make sure that this is actually going to harden and give me a somewhat decent dry time here. So then from there, just mix it up with your brush. There's no point in ruining other little mixers or whatever. Just use your brush and mix it up. Okay. Doesn't take very much, just kind of mix it up and then wipe the excess off the side of the brush. Then you're gonna go through here and just kind of pre-saturate all of the fiberglass that's exposed. That way you're gonna have something to stick to whenever you put your mat up there. All right, so here's one of the things I've never understood. So a lot of videos will show you put your mat up there like this. Obviously you wanna center that little joint on it. And a lot of videos show this, just dab, 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 and then you see it's just pulling the hairs up like crazy. Again, instead of having this glob of mess, just put the brush up there, let it absorb the resin. See, That's so much easier than doing the whole dabbing technique, which all I've found just creates a giant mess and moves your fiberglass repair piece out of where you want it. So, but we're gonna go ahead and finish this off just by doing the same technique of just kind of holding the resin up there and then dragging it. And don't worry about what it looks like now, because the stuff is super easy to grind off. So it's okay if it doesn't look perfect whenever you're putting that on there. It's not going to. All right, so the one area that I would watch out for though, is if you have something like on a corner, just kind of take your finger and smooth it over that. That way gravity is not trying to pull it down, because as it pulls it away from the corner, it will kind of tend to create a little bit of an air bubble. So you just want to make sure that everything is smoothed down. And I'm gonna call this good on this side. All right guys, so for the video's sake, we're gonna go ahead and jump over here to this side where all of the fiberglass mat has been laid down. There's just some imperfections like right through here. So we're gonna move on to the next step, which is going to be applying our short strand fiberglass filler. In this video, we're gonna use some Everglass by Evercoat. And down in the description, I'm gonna link to all the products that we've used in this video so that you guys can get them if you're working on a fiberglass car. And ignore me while I struggle to get this lid off. All right, so this stuff works just like typical body filler. It's just for a different surface. This actually has little hairs or fiberglass mixed inside of it. That way it's going to just be more structural. So it's probably not gonna sand as smooth as what your lightweight fillers are. Actually, I know they're not gonna sand as smooth. So we're just gonna take our hardener here. And really just gonna mix this stuff up just like you would regular body filler. If you haven't already, go check out the other video where I show you how to use body fillers. It's gonna be the exact same thing. We might be able to get this smooth enough to where we can spray our high build primer on. So that's the goal in this video. So to prep this up, again, you want some kind of coarse scratches on there, but this time rather than a grinder, because again, the whole purpose of this is to get this whole panel kind of taking shape. Personally, I'm gonna hit it with some 60 grit. That way it leaves deep enough scratches to where the stuff is going to penetrate. But then again, when we hit it with our high build primer, it's actually going to fill in those 60 grit scratches, and then we can go and block sand the whole car. For this video, we're gonna be using a metal applicator, and basically I like these because you would think that they would be less flexible, but really if you stick your thumb up here and kind of use your fingers on the backside to evenly distribute pressure, whenever you do that, you can see that the applicator will curve, and it's a very strong curve, so it's not going to have any flex to it. So whenever you're applying this to this slightly curved shape, you can kind of use that to your advantage to apply the filler the exact same way that you want the panel to look. You can actually see the low spots in there. I mean, maybe not on the camera, but you can see them pop up from the distance between the body and your applicator. There is one nice thing about colder days is that you have a little bit more work time with this, because if it was 90 outside, then you would almost feel rushed working on this. So basically, we're just gonna kind of spread it wherever we're gonna need it at first, and then we'll go in and fine tune it here in a second. So get it on the panel, and then again, use your fingers to kind of make the shape that you're wanting with the spreader, and then just drag it across there. And I'm not using heavy, crazy pressure or anything. Just nice, steady pressure. I like to work slower, as you can see with the brush. So I'm gonna say that's probably pretty good for that. And then we're gonna fill in some of these little pits down here with this. Okay, so as you can see, I've gotten both of the turn signal pods both mounted in there. They're kind of just rough sanded into place for right now. Obviously there's gonna be some more work involved in fine tuning them, but for the most part, we got this wheel arch all straightened out, looking pretty good. I have to clean up a little bit up here from a different repair that's unrelated, but again, every repair that I've done on the outside here, I've also duplicated the same process on the inside. That way it's structural on both sides. And then the only thing left to do is just rebuild this little flange right here. So there's that. Same thing on this side. Everything's looking pretty good. And I'm doing another repair right here. So again, this lip is not all the way finely tuned yet, but apparently this car used to be in like some kind of road course or something, and they would do like competitive racing and slaloms and all that stuff. And as the body would roll, the tire would contact. So that's how all these are kind of chipped up. But again, running all the way down into the fiberglass and rebuilding all this stuff. So the same kind of principle applies for any other issues that you're having on the body. Like this hole right here, this is where the rear bumper goes on. That hole was terrible, so it just needed fine-tuned. So basically I just took a piece of fiberglass, cut it into a square, molded it in there, and then just re-drilled the hole. And I mean, obviously it looks like nothing ever happened to it. So I think that was it for the fiberglass repairs. I have one more to do, which is just filling in this little hole right here. All right, so really the whole point of this video here is that I'm just kind of telling you guys how I'm addressing all these issues that we're having. Probably the most confusing one is something like that, where, you know, something used to be there and now it's been removed and you don't really have anything to go off of. I just use the patch panels body lines and lay a piece of tape out, and that's like my reference point that I use to make sure that these are in the same factory position. Another thing too is just going online and downloading a bunch of pictures of the car that you're working on and just see what that car looks like, study it up and down, make yourself all these little reference lines on there. All right, so one thing that I was discussing with the owner, and this just kind of goes to show you how many lines are actually on this car, but if I'm standing right here, this pod on this side looks lower than the one on the left side. I don't know if you guys can see that on camera or not, but this one for sure looks lower. And then if I take one step over, then all of a sudden this one looks lower than this one. So you have to make sure that when you're looking at it, you're square on with it, and then you can clearly see that they're completely even across there. But again, just stepping to the side just a little bit throws the whole thing off. So obviously I got some fine tuning to do for the whole car before we're going to put primer on it, but primer will be right around the corner. It's going to happen so fast. But we had to straighten out some body lines, like on the hood here. They had built it up with some body filler at one point and it was off. So we brought it back right in the middle. And even the bare fiberglass was messed up and the peak had been moved. Like, I don't know if they used too powerful of a sander or what, but we've got that straightened out the way that it should be. And our lines line up. So that's going to be what the next several days of working on this thing are going to be, just straightening everything out. All right, so obviously that's going to conclude this video. I'm going to be working on this nonstop for the next few weeks. And if you guys haven't already, make sure that you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. There's gonna be several updates coming on this video. And then I have another huge project lined up, probably the longest project yet. And I think every single one of you guys are gonna be very excited about it. I'm super excited about it, and I know that you guys are gonna be excited about it. All right, guys, other than that, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.